Hello, Trịnh Hoàng Quân. Quân, I have a question for you. Why that avatar? Do you feel dead inside? Do you feel like you're on a different planet, somewhere that you don't belong?
I I'm not I do not usually feel that not I'm I don't belong to our planet. Like
Hmm.
for some time because I'm currently living alone, so it gets quite boring sometimes, and it's just take me uh be, because stay alone, so I got a lot of time to rethink about my life, about my past regret, and how I could improve it in the future. So sometimes I could, I do wish that I could come back at those time and did something better. So I didn't think that is kind of leave the world and move to another planet.
Hmm. That was a bit much. Thank you for your heartfelt information. I didn't ask for all of that, but okay. So I guess you wasted a lot of time then. I know a thing or two about, having a lot of time on your hands and you're drifting to different planes of existence where you feel like, you have superpower, or at the very least, you have enough, responsibility to actually change certain things that you do. But in this reality, you still, are stuck in your ways and do nothing differently. Okay, cool. So today we're gonna move on to the first group of topics. So as I've told you, we have four sections in terms of training. They're equally difficult and equally important. The first, the first rotation concerns, the basic ways thanks to which you can extend your answers in all three parts. The second rotation deals with the same techniques but in different contexts, and we wrapped that up last week. So the third rotation would be about two groups of topics, and then a quick revision with regard to how we can implement ideas in different contexts. All right. So at this point, most of you have already known the drill. We're going to start off with a few speaking questions, and I'm not going to share my screen this time around because I want to make some notes so that I can tear you apart later on. Yeah, I did that last week, right? That was riveting. Hmm. So I'm going to ask you questions in a specific group of topics, and today we're going to talk about people-related topics, and that should take about 30 minutes. And then we're going to play a game, and then we're going to go through some sample answers with very specific goals to attain. All right, now let's cover the first topic here. Oh, before we start, I would like one of you to remind me of one of the rules that you need to bear in mind when you do the speaking test. And I don't want to sound too like, you know, vulgar. I'm thinking of a more civilized word. Don't mess it up, right? Okay. Tell me one important rule that you need to bear in mind when you do the speaking test. Let's start with the Chung, please.
Speak at length.
Hmm. I didn't expect to hear that from you because for you, I'm pretty sure that I have told you more than a few times to pay attention to a more specific thing. But that was a valid point as well. So the first thing you need to bear in mind is that you should always try to speak at length, adding details and discussing what you have said instead of just giving a list, which is especially true in speaking part three. All right, good. And one more person then. I need someone to hit the nail on the head. Dai, please.
Yes, yes. Uh, the other things that I have to focus for speaking is that I have to clearly extend my answer, not
We
just listing
covered
out.
that. We have covered that. I have just covered that.
Yes.
Mm. Any other things
The
I need
other
to bear in
things.
mind?
I think we should have a clear structure for the answer.
Hmm.
What I mean is that we should have the point, we should present the point of our answer first, then try to like suggest our reasons and give some results or examples to illustrate what I mean. Yeah.
That's kind of like a sub point of the first rule of thumb, which is to extend your ideas in a sensible way instead of listing things out. Okay, Dai, what you said was also valid, but it didn't quite hit the mark. Let's move on then. Another victim, and then we move on. Miss Foot, please. Read my mind.
I guess that we should go straight to the point.
No, 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 and no. The first thing is, yes, the extension of ideas, but you don't always have to address the question directly because sometimes you need a bit of time to gather your thoughts and, make up your mind. So you can say something like, well, I'm not too sure about that. I'm on the fence about this, or you're really picking my brains with this one. So let's see, things like that. So no, you don't always have to address the question, but you do have to answer the question in one way or another. The second thing I need you to bear in mind is to try to always speak in meaningful chunks of words, right? Meaningful chunks of words. So do your very best to, create like complete thoughts in your mind. And when you speak, complete chunks in English instead of trying to, translate one word at a time because that's going to mess up your rhythm, right? Okay, apparently nobody managed to hit the mark this time around. All that complaint that I did last week. Okay, let's cover a few speaking part one questions. Let's start with um, let's start with Miss Chang, please. Are you a student or do you work?
Well, currently I'm working as an English teacher at a secondary school in Hanoi. I teach English for students from grade 6 to 9, and it's a challenging job for me, but I find it incredibly rewarding to see my students make progress.
Hmm. How much time do you spend working every week?
Well, let's say I work from around 7:30 to 4 almost every weekday. So how much was that? Um, More than 8 hours a day. Um,
Hmm.
so quite a lot for me actually. And besides the official work at school, I also have extra classes at night, um, teaching students who want to get into my school currently. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's quite a lot.
Nice. But then, hold on, let me make a note here. Hmm. Do you think that it's better for you to work alone or in groups?
Well, it depends. I usually prefer working alone because it helps me concentrate better and I can manage my work in my own pace. However, most of the time I have to collaborate with other teachers in the school, especially during workshop or training sessions. So yeah, it
Okay,
quite
thank you.
depends.
Thank you. Let's continue. Mm, Hang Wen, please. Are you a student or do you work?
So currently I'm a full-time student. I do work at an English teacher sometime, but at all my time, most of my time I spend in my university.
But then how much time do you spend studying every week?
Well, it depends on my mood. Depends on my mood. Sometimes my mood, my I mean my emotion. Sometimes I feel very energetic and I'm so motivated to study in long session, but most of the time it is quite boring and tedious to study alone. So
Mm.
I don't spend so much time studying.
But then, um, what do you like best about your major and why?
Well, regarding my major, I would say it is the, the income. I would say it is about the income of, of my major, like the future income, because um, currently I'm specialized in logistic and supply chain management. So it's quite a demanding major. So why um, I place a lot of choose in the future promotion and the
Thank you. Right. I have students who are studying the same field as you are right now. I would say that they will grow up to be shippers. Well, shipper is not actually a good, an actual term, but it is a very popular term here in Vietnam. Essentially, I always taunt them that they will graduate with a college degree to work as delivery men. But it's okay. Let's continue. Let's talk about childhood friends. Hoa, please. Who was your best friend as a child?
Um, I have to say from when I work in my childhood, I have a really good friend. Like I can call him like my like partner in crime. Like we did everything, many things, very stupid things. Then in and one thing I remember the most from him is like he's very younger than me. I don't know. Like or in the past, maybe he was like very short and uh I I can uh, no, I can't say it. But
Okay. But then do you still keep in touch with him?
yeah, we still friends from now.
Hmm. But then, in your opinion, what makes someone a good friend?
In my opinion, like a good friend, they're like a main factor from a good friend. I guess is like he or she has to be have to be loyal and truly with each other.
Hmm. Let's continue.
Uh,
Thank
yeah.
you. Chung, please. Hmm. Did you have many friends as a kid?
Well, as a kids, I didn't have many much friends. I only had like 4 to 5 close friends because I was kind of an introvert person, and I found it very difficult for me to make friends with strangers.
Hmm. But then, when do you usually meet the friends that you have now?
Well, there are a variety of ways that I can meet my friends now, but like we often go to like some coffee shop to like gossip about things that happen in our lives. And sometimes me and some of my best friend also go to some like billiards club to like relax and distress after the whole day study.
Hmm. Well then, how do Vietnamese people often keep in touch with their friends?
Well, in Vietnam, I think that people often keep in touch with their friends through social media platforms, such as like some people they have friends like overseas, but they still chatting and gossip with them through like many social apps such as like Facebook and Instagram. And
Thank you. Let's move on. So we have already talked about two topics, study and work, and childhood friends. Let's talk about famous people. Miss Book, please. Did you admire any celebrities when you were younger?
Well, there were so many celebrities that I admire, and I dreamed to have chance to talk to them when I was little. One
Mm,
of them was a famous Vietnamese singer,
mm,
and I used to dream about her when I slept. And right until now, she's also one of my favorite singer.
mm. Do you follow any celebrities now?
Well, I follow so many celebrities on social media because I feel that they inspire me a lot in their lifestyle and the effort to be successful person.
Mm. Well then, what kinds of events do famous people often attend?
Well, it can be community events like
Mm,
some traditional uh, occasions where celebrity joins like to inspire other to join together and to contribute to like to join hands to like to contribute to the community. And
mm,
there are some like entertaining programs like concert or yeah, so that the celebrities can join.
Thank you. Let's continue. Yoon, please. Do you follow any celebrities now?
Well, I would say no. Maybe sometimes I do adore them. Maybe after watching a movie, I feel that their acting skills are kind of good. But in general, I don't really follow anyone. I just think
Mm.
about myself.
But then, what tends to make someone famous in your country?
I think there are two main ways in general. Like the positive one, they can be famous for their talents. Maybe they can be good at singing, acting, or like making fun, making people feel fun, kind of that. But there is also one more way, yeah, which is a negative one, maybe due to some scandals or a kind of rumors, bad rumors. Yeah, they could be also famous as well, but not that good.
Mm. But then, do you think that do you think that famous people in Vietnam tend to, have very high income levels?
I would say yes. I think, like, yes, I mentioned there are two ways of becoming famous, but I think when they have become famous, it means that they are also have a talent, maybe. Yeah, general is a talent. I think becoming famous is a talent, and they can make a full advantage of it, and then they can have a very high income.
Thank you. So we have covered a few speaking part one questions. In the next part of the test, I'm going to give you a topic. I'm going to show you the topic on the screen, but as you speak, I would like to make some notes so that I can give you some feedback later on. So I'm going to send the topic in the chat box as well. As usual, you have 1 minute to make some notes in preparation for what you want to speak about, and then you can speak about this topic between 1 and 2 minutes. But don't worry if I stop you. It's in the chat box. I would like you to describe a person who has inspired you. Let me show you the screen. Your 1 minute of preparation starts now. Okay. Now, the full topic can be found in the chat box. And let's do some speeches here. Okay. Remember, you can speak about this topic between 1 and 2 minutes, and don't worry if I stop you. You can start speaking now. Let's start with Dai, please.
Okay. So I will start. When it comes to a person who has inspired me a lot, the very first one that pops up in my mind would be Sơn Tùng MCP. Talking a little bit about this person, he's one of the most famous singer in Vietnam, who is the owner of many globally well-known songs such as Lạc Trôi, uh, especially the collaboration with Snoop Dogg in "Give It to Me," his MV. Yeah. Um, there are a lot of reasons why I really admired him and why he's really inspired me. The very first reason is that he's really hardworking. Um, as far as I'm concerned, he had to leave his hometown to move to Ho Chi Minh City to pursue his study in the national musical institution in Ho Chi Minh City, and basically that school was really challenging when it comes to the enrollment and its study. Yeah, so basically he had to put a lot of efforts into his study and trying a lot to improve his voice, and to compose a lot of like piece of songs. And basically he has tried a lot to be successful and to become famous, thanks to his, I have to say, relentless efforts in making new music and songs. He's finally become really famous and top star when he was just around his 20s. And the very first time that I heard his music was like, I would say, not years ago. The the song named "The Girl of
Thank you.
of Yesterday."
Thank you.
Oh my
Well
God.
then, do you often read news related to this person?
Yeah, a lot because he's the
Hmm,
top star. So there's a lot of magazines and newspapers trying to get some news and information about him to attract
thank you.
viewers.
Thank you. All right, next person. Lee, please. Remember, you can speak about this topic between 1 and 2 minutes. Don't worry if I stop you. You should start speaking now.
So I will tell you about my university teacher, and I first met her during my first year in university. And I could say that she quickly became one of my favorite teachers because of her teaching style. At the beginning of my first year, I struggled a lot with finance, my major. It's really difficult for me to remember all the methods and all the theories about the risk management and many theories, abstract theory. I could say that it was definitely a steep learning curve for me. And that time I spend the bulk of my time to study to review all the lectures in order to get good marks. And my teacher always encouraged me take step by step, and she explained complicated theories for me in a practical way and easier way in order to help me so I can wrap my head about all the theories. And I would say that what impressed me most about my teacher is that she is really kind. She not only she is really kind, and she always preparing my lessons in a practical way and more engaging that students can easily remember. Especially she usually invent many case study or project that all the study can involve in and play a role in order to remember the theory easier.
Thank you. So you've been talking about a teacher at your university. Do you often talk to her?
Yes, during my university student, my teacher in my major, she taught us throughout 4 years, and I taught
Thank you. Thank you. In the next part of the test, I'd like to discuss with you one or two general questions related to what you have been talking about. Before we start, let me remind you again of the fact that in speaking part three, there are usually three frames of questions. The first frame often concerns your general knowledge. The second frame would require you to discuss opinions. And the last frame is often the most challenging because there are more abstract concepts, right? But just because you're answering questions about general knowledge, it doesn't mean that you should, only list things out. Remember, this part is about your ability to discuss. So make sure that you state your point and try to explain why you say what you say, okay? Now, let's talk about leadership. Chang, please. What qualities make someone a good leader? You
No,
might want to turn on your mic. Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, in my opinion, a good leader is someone who can guide others with both confidence and empathy. It's not just about giving orders or giving instruction, or making decisions. And I think what really matters is the ability to listen and to understand the needs of people in the group and bring out the best of them. People tend to trust or to follow the leader that they trust, and trust is earned through a lot of things like willing to take responsibility or like um, fairness, things like
Do you
that.
think that, thank you. So you've been talking about a leader's ability to sympathize with other members in the company. Do you think that team leaders should always prioritize the needs of other team members, or should they pay more attention to the success of the company?
Well, I think the best would be trying to balance both. both of both like the success of the quality and feelings of members of the group is equally important in my opinion. So a good leader should try strike a balance between them.
Thank you. Well, then, how can a leader, manage to find that balance?
Hmm, that's a strict question for me, I think. Um, Probably they have to analyze the situations, uh, and to see which one should be prioritized in that situation. Um,
Thank you. Let's move on then. Please. Do you think that famous people have a responsibility to act as role models?
Can you say it again?
Hmm. Do you think famous people have a responsibility to act as role models?
I think famous people and models is like two different things.
Hmm.
Because a famous people can, like, I think the model is like a mirror that everybody gonna see in like a mirror uh for their lifestyle or maybe their uh point of view in life. But famous people, I think it isn't more like, I think if I have to put famous people and model in a scale and scale up, like the one that
Thank you.
can influence.
Thank you. Thank you. Well then, in which situation should young people consider, a famous person as a role model?
I think young people gonna consider famous people as the young models when they the young people find a similar things from
Hmm.
their model, their famous one, like they can see that they have uh the same point of view, or when they can the famous people have one thing that the young people wanna achieve in the
Hmm.
future.
Thank you. Let's move on then. Um, Miss Phượng, please. Why do people admire others, even strangers or celebrities?
I think that the people who is successful
Hmm.
and influence, I think that their lifestyle and the way that they do to become that successful person will inspire other to to do the same way to become a better version of themselves.
Hmm. Well, can you give me an example of, an individual that has that kind of impact here in Vietnam, for instance?
Like some celebrities, they uh, they are not only talented, but they
Hmm.
are
Can you give
also
me a specific example?
like one of the singer, he's Hải Tuấn. He's one of the famous singer in Vietnam, and he is inspiring singer. Uh, as he's not only famous for uh, catchy songs, but also for the community activities that he joined to contribute to the community. And he used to give a great amount of money for some charity groups to
Thank you.
support others.
Hmm. Thank you. Let's continue. We still have a bit of time. For those that have already, answered speaking part three questions, you can jump on this file to see my notes for you. I can give it to you straight, no change later on. But if you want to have some sort of, preemptive effort to soften the blow, then you can read the notes. All right, let's continue. Gwen, please. Let's talk again about the qualities of a good leader outside of the ability to empathize or sympathize with other team members. What quality is also very important?
Well, regarding the quality of being a good leader, I would say it will be the ability to lead and affect other people. Like a good leader is also it's either people who have a lot of effect on their staff, like their college got to follow and understand their vision. And a good leader, if someone could make their staff or their college understand their vision and their work and somehow affect the other people way of doing other people way of working.
Mm.
Could,
Thank you. Do you think that, that particular ability can be learned, or is it something that you're born with?
well, I I don't think that's someone are born with uh you know born with an ability to if affect someone
Mm.
because the affection on other people depend on how people look, how they speak, or their own abilities. While they are looking are something that quite innate, like
Mm.
like our skill and our way of doing something must be improved and learned over time. So I
But
do not.
then how can we improve our ability to lead other people over time?
Well, when it comes to improving our leadership skills, I do think that the most optimal way is to try to lead as soon as you can. Like I saw a lot of people, they are reluctant to take responsibility for other people, and they don't want to lead other people because they are afraid of making a bad decision that can affect um, their works. However, I do think that this is quite wrong thing to do because if you want to improve your leadership skill, the first thing and the most important thing to do is to jump on the bandwagon and try to do it right away when you got chance to do so.
Thank you. Chung, please. Let's continue with this question about good leaders. Do you think that people can, join courses to become better leaders?
Well, I think that it depends. Like for some people, they have the talents of leadership since they was small, and like somebody they don't have to attend to like courses to learn how to become a leader. But like for some other people that they want to understand more about their responsibilities and their like to know more about their place positions or leader, I think that they should attend to some courses to like understand more their about the positions.
Mm, well, then how can you tell if these courses are actually effective?
Well, it's kind of difficult question for me because I haven't attended to any leadership courses, but like some of my like relative who is a very like successful person, and he has like told me about their experience of him like attending to her leadership courses, and like he said that like it's very like effective for people who want to become a leader to attend to those courses.
Thank you. Let's move on. Nhung, please. Some people say that the influence of famous people these days is detrimental. Do you agree with that?
No. Yeah,
Mm,
of course, it has two sides.
mm,
Yeah, we can talk about negative ones first. I do agree that to a certain extent, some influencers are, yeah, detrimental, like especially to children. For example, there are some content makers, content creators who have contents related to some like toxic games or toys, yeah, like which are not suitable for children's ages, you know? However, if the children watch those videos, they can still follow. So it's a bad thing. On the other hand, yeah, there are so many influencers who are still very good. Yeah, they can do some voluntary work or just kind of nice things, show their talents so that other can follow.
mm. But then, mm, how can we? So you've been talking about both, positive and negative. Sorry, you've been talking about famous people who can have both, who can have either positive or negative influences. But then, how can your parents encourage their children to, follow celebrities that have a positive influence instead of those with a negative one?
Um, I think that parents cannot solve that problem on the surface. They
Mm,
can't set such a model or a list of celebrities that children should follow or not. They can't. I think they should train the children like more directly. For example, how good people look like to be exact. Children should like be good at recognizing good people, like either on social media platforms or in society, you know?
mm. Thank you. Dai, please. Mm,
Yes.
Same question then. So, in your opinion, why do, people admire others, even strangers or celebrities?
I think there are two main reasons for that behavior. The very first one is that humans are naturally admire someone who possesses a unique talent, because personally I believe that mm, unique talent is something normal people cannot have. So basically they just admire it because it's so special. The
Mm.
second reason
Thank you.
is that
Can you give me examples of talents that are unique?
um let me talk about music producer. Like it's not easy for all people to produce and compose a song uh so like melodic. Yeah, I have to say that. So basically it that that kind of requires a lot of effort and also a bit of talent. For example, Charlie Puth, who is well known for his special talent for music, not only for the ability to compose a lot of like billion views songs, but also for his knowledge in that field as well.
Mm. Thank you. Lee, please. Same question. So, some people might, admire other individuals, like, celebrities or just someone that they read, that they come to know from newspapers. Mm. Why do people admire other individuals like that?
I think people admire others because they want to have their their uh, the qualities of others like confidence or talent, and even though some property of some rich people. For example, some famous people who usually appear on social media and they have tons of property. So the normal people like me also want to acquire them because not only hurts their talent but also their activities in making the wealth and also activities to contribute to the
Thank you.
community.
Thank you. Do you think that that kind of like materialistic admiration is a positive form of admiration?
I think it depends. Sometimes, but actually, in my opinion, it's somehow play a positive thing because in society we need the materialistic to fulfill our happiness.
Thank you.
Like
Thank you. That's the end of the speaking drill. Right. I've already sent you the link, so I'm just going to speed past the notes here. Okay. All right, I'd like to turn over a new leaf and say mostly positive things because I feel like if I continue to bash you, first of all, it's going to affect, my own blessings, right? You can't expect to be blessed and be a curse towards other people. So I want to say positive things, right? That's a promise. And I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be able to do that considering your answers today. Okay, now let's start with Chang. Overall, for this particular topic, you nailed it. Although I felt like there were a few mistakes here and there, but they didn't have that much of an impact, in my opinion. I would also advise you to try to maintain this particular pace when you speak, even in speaking part 3, because you sort of like fumble the ball somewhere along, speaking part 3. But overall, good impression. For one here, you did repeat a couple of words in, an in an unnatural way, like you were stalling for time. So try not to do that. There were a couple of pronunciation errors as well. For instance, now repeat after me. Most, the S has to be there most of the time.
Most of the time.
Good. Place a lot of trust. So this word is trust, not truth. One more time. I place a lot of trust.
Place a lot of trust.
Okay. The impression was not that great because here's a piece of advice. Like when you do the speaking test, there are 4 or maybe three essential topics that will always be asked. The first one is, study or work. In your case, because your answer is that you're a student, there will definitely be questions concerning your, education, like your major or your preferred learning styles, things like that. So make sure that you know exactly how to answer these questions, right? And then you can move on to, less common topics, which tend to be kind of unpredictable, right? But as far as, the first topics are concerned, study and work, hometown and accommodation are the topics that you absolutely have to master, right? Okay, let's talk about childhood friends here. Hua, I think that the main issue with your answers in both speaking part 1 and part 3 was that you didn't exactly complete your thoughts. Like you were going back and forth between ideas, which translated into random utterances. You didn't quite finish any particular idea. So I had to put down the note here. Too many random hesitations. Like you broke all of your sentences into 2 words. And when you were able to go through, let's say a chunk, like we did many stupid things, right? You didn't even bother explaining these points. So that's not a positive habit, and definitely something that you need to get to grips with, right? I mean, I don't have any particular problem with your ideas outside of the fact that I didn't understand what you were saying at all, right? Your thoughts were incoherent. So the first thing that you need to do when it comes to your speaking training is that you need to learn how to formulate a complete thoughts. We learned this in speaking part 1 training already. Try to give an answer and then add more details to your answer. Like when we first started, this particular course, you were there, if I'm not mistaken, and your answers were pretty easy to understand. But your answers today are horrendous, to be honest. Oh, hold on. I should not say negative things, right? Sorry. So I didn't really understand what you were saying. So let's hope that you'll be able to, formulate clearer thoughts, right? I'm not sure if I have faith in you in that particular aspect, but I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed, right? I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah, thanks.
As you can tell, I'm not exactly cut out for this, making positive commenting. Okay. Chung, same old problem. Do you need me to say more? As a yes or no? I still couldn't quite catch that. Is that a yes or no? Do I need to say more about this? Chung,
No.
okay, you need to work on your rhythm. I felt like your ideas were very easy to understand, but the way that you know, like chopped your sentences into chunks of words was just slightly inappropriate. Okay. Miss Philip here. Well, I thought that your answers in speaking part 1 was understandable, but I do notice that you tended to avoid examples, right? Whenever I asked you to give me an example, there was a clear sign of struggle. So my advice would be for you to try to think of more specific examples instead of just trying to make like generic points. It might work in speaking part 1, but definitely won't work in speaking part 3. Okay. And also, I would encourage you to like develop your ideas more appropriately. Don't stop at like generic concepts. Like for instance, when you say, she inspired me to be a successful person. Well, you might want to explain what kind of success you want to attain, right? She inspires me to become a successful person. Like, I also want to have like a flourishing career in education and, make lots of money for my family. Things like that. You need to explain things a bit more, a bit more. Okay? Um, as for Nhung, like too many what too too main way without the S here. So there should have been an S, right? Too main ways. Like the positive one. It's a very common mistake in speaking. Like when you speak Vietnamese, you can break your sentences like that. But when you do the speaking test, try not to break your sentences like that. You need a better connective word. Like you can say something like like for the positive one, right, you can use the word for, as for, regarding, instead of saying like the positive one. That is not a good connective word, right? And then you said something about they can do something or another, making people feel fun. I think it's better to say they can entertain people, right? Become famous, but not that good. again, I think it's more of an issue of translation. It's better for you to say, they tend to become notorious rather than famous. So notorious is the same as famous, but it's like a negative form of famous. You can also say that they can achieve fame, but in a negative way, right? So you need to work on sentence formation. For Tài, Sơn Tùng MTP, he's not one of the biggest artists in Vietnam. He is the biggest. There's nobody in his lane, not even Mỹ Tâm, in my opinion. But still, I think that
Yes,
he's in a league of his
I
own.
want to
There are a few notes here.
Yes.
There are a few notes here. I suppose it's really just about like more proper expressions and rhythm. That's all. Like instead of saying he's the owner of many well-known songs, it's a very Vietnamese way to say it, right? You can say that he has like tons of hits under his belt. Same thing, but in English, I think that people often go with the latter. Yeah, that should be it. Lee, I think that you knocked it out of the park in speaking part 2, although there were a couple of mistakes. You need to pay attention to past tenses, right? She became my favorite teacher instead of become. And when you talk about what she did in the past, you need to use past tenses, right? And then in order to, I think that we've been through this. This is a particular phrase that should not be repeated unless you're willing to risk your test. Because words like and, to, I guess you can repeat them every once in a while if you can't seem to, gather your thoughts immediately. But words like in order to should never be repeated because, it's one of those phrases that give the impression of rote learning. Like you learn by memorizing things or scripts in a very mechanical, very robotic way, right? So don't repeat this phrase and discipline yourself in that particular way. She's always preparing, more engaging, that. So towards the end of your description of this particular teacher, you lost accuracy and control, right? So you need to work on that, in my opinion. The first part was fine, but after like 1 minute and 30 seconds, you definitely spiraled out of control. Like your thoughts were kind of incoherent, so on and so forth. So make sure that you try to maintain your high level of control throughout these 2 minutes. It's only 2 minutes, right? But it can be quite a challenging thing to do. And for speaking part 3, Chang, I have already given you some comments. Your ideas were perfectly understandable, but you sort of slowed down in a really conspicuous way. It was like you were telling me that you were not able to speak fluently. So try to maintain a better rhythm, like the one that you displayed at the beginning. For Kwon, your answer was very unclear at the beginning, but then you managed to work out what your answer actually was. So my advice for you would be to come, wait, what's that phrase again? To come forth? No. Essentially, to be transparent with the examiner right at the beginning. Like you can say something like, well, I'm not too sure about this particular question because I have never acted as a leader at any point in time, and I also don't read things about like famous leaders. So my guess is that if you want to be a very successful leader, you need to have the ability to convince other people to follow your instructions or your visions, right? Instead of saying something that is very nebulous, like Well, I think that a good leader is someone who can lead. Duh. I mean, not duh in a sassy way. Oh, I need to say something positive. Essentially, try to think of more specific ideas, right? And it needs training. All right. Fast exercise. There's a pronunciation mistake here. Bad decision. Bad decision. Right. Chum, you made one mistake here. Attend to some courses. It's only attend some courses. But I think that the perennial problem with you was your rhythm. You chopped your answers at all the wrong points. And towards the end of your speaking part three answers, you lost control. So you started blending words again. Right? Mm. Hua, I think we've been through this. I feel like you didn't know what this answer was all about. Role models are essentially people who have very positive behavior that you want to emulate, right? So you consider, oftentimes people would consider like famous people as role models because, these are the individuals with, widespread recognition and perhaps a good fortune to their name. They tend to work hard as well, which is a wonderful quality to emulate. Okay? I just think that, I'm not quite sure what your opinion was, and
No,
frankly,
maybe
I wouldn't.
I just misunderstood the question. Like I thought that it was you are asking about how young people like respond me to act like they're famous one. Like I don't know. Maybe I have the wrong question in my mind.
I actually disagree. I thought that you understood what role models was. Role models are essentially people that you want to copy, that you respect them and you want to be like them. These are role models. These are models for the roles that you want to play. So I think that you understood the question correctly, but your ideas were not appropriately expressed. There was not even a single coherent thought because you chopped your sentences into too many ideas and you didn't exactly, have the necessary discipline to state a point first. Or maybe you did state your point, but then your explanation was not there. Not there. So try to speak in a more disciplined way, Hua. I think that at the beginning, you were able to explain your thoughts very clearly. But for this particular lesson, you bombed all of your questions because you were so caught up in going back and forth, changing your mind. That's not a good way to exercise your speaking skill. Again, let me repeat this. You do need to demonstrate the ability to form coherent thought. So if you want to say yes, explain. If you want to say no, explain. If you want to say both yes and no, then you have to say, well, it can be a yes in some situations. You explain why. You give some examples for that particular viewpoint. And then if you want to say no, you say why, and you give some examples. And you can conclude by saying that, so yeah, I think that, it's still up in the air or it's undecided, things like that. My issue with your answers was that I couldn't understand a single thing you said because right before you were about to state your point, you changed your mind.
Yeah, okay.
So you need to work on that. I'm talking about discipline here. Definitely need to establish a more coherent train of thought. Okay. For Nhung, lots of inappropriate expressions. Just have a look at the notes. For Miss Phượng, again, I think that for you, Miss Phượng, you also had a huge problem with giving examples. So try to work on that. Now, as for the whole thing related to, like speaking and translating, I do concede that, that issue is a huge problem and it's not going to stop plaguing you until you've reached the level of 9. So I'm not going to, put you on the spot for like translating at the back of your mind. But I do encourage you to try to learn and practice speaking in chunks of English words instead of thinking of ideas in Vietnamese and then translate them into English, right? Um, so for Thai, I think that you kind of fumbled the ball when I asked you to give me an example of what you would consider to be a unique talent, right? So you gave me an example of music producers, but halfway through the example, you sort of changed your mind, saying that, well, a bit of talent and hard work. A bit of talent is not a unique talent,
Yeah, I agree.
right?
Like at that time I don't know how to diễn đạt cảm âm tuyệt đối.
It's okay. You can say they have, very unique abilities when it comes to, listening and understanding music and rhythms, right? And it's very different from ordinary people. That they can hear things that we cannot, and they know how to, press all the right buttons to get the right sound, right? That would be my example of that. As for Lee, I mean, you also struggled, but then this is a really hard question, so I'm not blaming you. But you do need to work on questions like this, and yeah, you were unable to make up your mind about it. Just one recommendation: instead of saying property, you could say success. It's a bit weird to say that. It's a bit weird for you to combine qualities with property, because property in that context would be interpreted as a feature of a particular material. Like for instance, like a property of plastic is that it's flexible. A property of a wooden table is that it's hard. A property of, let's say, your house is that it's big. So the word property here, you can look it up. It means a feature or an aspect of something rather than houses and, apartments, right? So I think it's better for you to say success, qualities and success, and then you can, use the possession of like houses and apartments or, real estate in general as an example of someone's success, right? And yeah, that's all. So overall, how can I say anything positive about this? Well, I guess part one was fine, part two was fine, but then perhaps with the exception of Chiang in the first two questions, all of you had something in common, which was not so good answers in speaking part three. As you can tell, I'm not fluent in complimenting other people.
Can
To
you
do something
give me
about that.
some suggestion on how to answer the third question? I freaked out back then.
When it comes to speaking part three questions, if you really want to deal with them, one of the ways for you to, improve your skill is really to try to think of simple ideas. Chang, I think that I have already taught you this. It's just that perhaps you haven't really got enough exposure to questions or situations in which you have to answer like generic questions like that. So it's just a matter of experience, in my opinion. If I show you the techniques, then like these are the things you have already learned in the previous lessons. Right?
I mean, the actual question of that, how do you answer that? Because my mind went blank back then.
What was the question again?
Um, so if you, I think the question is, how would you know when to like prioritize the company or just to um care
Focus
more
on,
about the people's feeling?
okay, okay. So how would you know? If you don't know, you can say, I don't know, or something like that, right? Again, you can be transparent with the examiner with regard to your limited knowledge in that particular field, right? So you can say something like, well, to be honest, I think that this is a really hard question because I have never acted as a leader myself. But, well, I have a suggestion. Perhaps, when companies have huge projects, directors need to focus on getting the work done. And then, once they have, sealed the deal or, successfully completed the project, they can get some feedback from, other employees. And based on that feedback, they can make, adjustments with regard to, how instructions should be handled and, what what ways can be applied to enhance connection between members in the same team or to improve productivity, right? So what if you are willing to say that I'm not quite sure, right? But I'm willing to give you some suggestions. Examiners tend not to, give you unexpected twists and turns, down the road. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. That was a tumultuous start, but I still have some points to make here. So, I'm showing you some scripts, and what are we gonna do with this? Oh, okay. So let me remind you of the fact that in part one, we have some iconic topics such as study and work, and then hometown, and then accommodation. Make sure that you know how to answer questions for these four topics, or else your fate is sealed. Your score is already, printed on your test result form. So that's one thing to bear in mind. And then you'll be given less common topics, such as like childhood friends and things like that. So we're just going to go through some sample answers, and I'm going to make remarks along the way. Now let's talk about study here. Let's start with Lee. How much time do you spend studying every week? As you read these answers, I would like you to pay attention to your rhythm. All right. Let's see.
Let's see. I'm a third-year student, so I got quite a lot on my plate. I do have classes in the morning, sometimes from 7 to 12, and in the afternoon, I either have more classes or spend time studying and doing group projects in the library. So roughly 6 hours a day and about 30 hours a week.
30 hours a week. Okay. I guess for questions like this, just try to add more details and a bit of explanations every once in a while. Let's continue. Is it better for you to study alone or in groups? Chung, please.
I think it depends. For exam revisions, I feel like it's better to go at it by myself. And it's just because I can keep my eye on the ball. Revising for the test rather than taking it to my friends and
Talking.
talking to my friends and getting distracted. But of course, for assignments, discussion with other members are essential, and everyone needs to know that they have to pull their own weight.
Okay. So if you can't make up your mind, you can say, I think it depends. And then again, they explain, okay, in this situation, is a yes, right? In this situation, is a no. In this situation, you definitely need to go at it by yourself, is a phrase. If you go at something by yourself, it means you do it by yourself. And then you can explain, right? And then in other situations, it's better for you to have other members of your group around because of reason A and B, things like that. Any question regarding the vocabulary items here? Hoa?
No.
No, okay, good. We are gonna skip some of the sample answers for work here because this is also a pretty iconic topic. And I'm going to give you all the benefit of the doubt and ask you to read the answers through at home. Again, I think I've already said this, but like questions for work and study are crucial. If you are already working, make sure you know how to describe your work, how to describe your routine, how to describe your work responsibilities, right? Because the moment you say, I'm working as something, there will be questions concerning your work life. So make sure that you master this topic. And if you're a student, then of course you have to learn how to speak about, your educational background and your commitments at school and things like that. All right. Okay, let's talk about childhood friends here. We're going to go through some of the example answers. Um, Miss Foot, please, the first one. Who was your best friend as a child?
Well, I had a couple of friends when I was a kid. My best friends were Huy and Việt Anh, and we used to hang out after school. Huy was more reserved and soft-spoken, whereas Việt Anh was more a social butterfly, talking endlessly. I was somewhat in between, so we meshed well.
So we matched well. That was a weird pause in terms of your pronunciation. Let's do that again. I was somewhat in between, so we matched well. So we matched well. You have to go down.
So we meshed well.
Okay, nice. This is just a description, so nothing special about this answer. But yeah, I guess you can develop your ideas in this particular way. Just describe people. Let's continue. Did you still keep in touch with them? Please.
Unfortunately, no. After primary school, we went to different secondary schools. I attended the school in my neighborhood, which was very nice and not super expensive. They went to school in other districts and we drifted apart due to conflicting schedules.
I still feel like you tend to add dấu nặng to every single word. You need a dấu huyền. Need a dấu huyền. Every once in a while, don't add dấu huyền all the time, but definitely not dấu nặng because it shortens all of the words.
Oh,
Let's do that again. The last bit here. And we drifted apart, not drifted. It's drifted.
and
And
we
we drifted
drifted,
apart due to conflicting schedules.
and we drifted
Apart. Continue.
apart due to conflicting schedules.
Not conflicting, not conflicting. It has to be conflicting
Conflicting
schedules.
schedules.
Also, no pause between drifted and apart. You have to go through the whole thing because it's a phrasal verb. Let's do it again. And we drifted apart due to conflicting schedules. One breath.
And we drifted apart due to conflicting schedules.
You need to stretch the words out, not do. It's due to, not due to.
Schedule.
No. Due to, not due to.
Due to.
No, due to.
Due to.
Stretch the words out. Let's do this one last time. And we drifted apart due to conflicting schedules. Jewels, not jewels.
Okay. And we drifted apart due to conflicting schedules.
Not quite in there. The words were still too short. Let's do that again. What makes someone a good friend? Tài, please.
Yeah, okay.
Read.
Well, yeah. Well, let me think. A good friend is definitely someone who understands you. I mean, it's hard to call someone a good friend if all of your conversations are driven to the dead end. In many cases, they should also be willing to tell you if you are doing something wrong rather than turning a blind eye on that. But of course, there's a fine line between being constructive and just plain rude and judgmental.
The rhythm was off. You need to stretch some word out here, this part first. If all of your conversations are driven to a dead end. So driven to a dead end. One more time.
If all of your conversations are driven to a dead end.
Too fast. Too fast. I'm a fast speaker myself, and I could barely understand what you were saying. You really need to slow down and stretch the words out.
If all of your conversations are driven to a dead end.
You need to add some cement to the bricks that you have laid. If all of your your conversations, not your conversations are, it's more like if all of your conversations are driven to a dead end.
If all of your conversations are driven to a dead end.
Okay, let's continue. Rather than, it has to be pronounced clearly. They should also be willing to tell you if you're doing something wrong, rather than turning a blind eye on that. Rather than, one more time.
They should also be willing to tell you if you are doing something wrong, rather than turning a blind eye on that.
Then, no, rather than it has to be more tonguey.
Rather than.
Not there. Not quite there yet. One more time. Rather than.
Rather than.
No. One more time. Rather than. Rather than.
Rather than. Rather
Okay.
than.
Okay, and the last bit here. There's a fine line between being constructive and just plain rude and judgmental. The thing here is that you cannot treat both of these ends in the same way because they serve different purposes. Now, this end, this is like the first idea, and this is like the second idea, right? And the second idea contains the word and. So a more appropriate rhythm would be something like, but of course, there's a fine line between being constructive and just plain rude and judgmental. So this end should not be that clearly pronounced. One more time. But of course. But of course.
Yes. But of course, there's a fine line between being constructive and just plain rude and judgmental.
Nope. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. There was no distinction between the two. One more time. There's a fine line between being constructive and just plain rude and judgmental.
Oh,
So this
yes.
end here, this end should be slightly clearer, I think.
Yeah, okay, thank you. There's a fine line between being constructive and just plain rude and judgmental.
You might want to connect this these words together. It should be more like just plain rude and judgmental. Just plain rude and judgmental. So just plain rude, stretch the word out, and then and judgmental. One more time.
Yes, there's fine line between being constructive and just plain rude and judgmental.
There's still no difference. Okay, work on that. The first N, you can stretch it out a bit more. The second N should be an. Right. That should be it for this topic then. Like when it comes to uncommon topics, as you can see, the vocabulary is not really that nice. It's not horrible, but it's definitely not as polished as some of the more familiar topics. And I think that that's perfectly understandable. When it comes to the topics that will always be asked, you definitely need to know how to navigate them and navigate them well, right? That's your shot of making a good impression. And a good first impression is always the most important thing. Because if you bomb the test right from the beginning, the examiner is not going to waste like 15 minutes to actually hammer out a score for you. Your score is given like from the very first topic, right? So make sure that you don't bomb the first part. But then when you move on to the territory of uncommon topics, my advice is that you should always try to, just like speak in a sensible way by, forming, chunks of words, right? And when you speak, try to speak complete ideas. Your examiner doesn't care about whether or not you're talking, in an honest way. So you might have this, internal war with yourself, thinking about, whether or not you should mention this or that. But the examiner doesn't care. That's the problem. And your duty as a candidate is to streamline everything for them, right? So if you don't want to speak about it, you say that, well, I don't want to speak about it because, it's something really bad. But essentially, he really messed up and I had to cover for him. Something like that, right? But you have to complete your thoughts. Don't switch back and forth. Don't switch back and forth. That is a horrible way of speaking, by the way, right? So that should be it. The key advice here is that when it comes to uncommon topics, don't go back and forth with your ideas. Just add details and provide explanations where necessary, right? Okay, let's move on then. In speaking part two, I think the problem with speaking part two is that if you pick the wrong person, you're gonna put yourself in a very difficult situation. It's like being stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? So make sure that you spend your 1 minute well enough to, make proper notes and choose the proper, like the best person to speak about. Don't try to test your luck in the test, right? So let's go through the script here. I think that, I have talked about Vian a couple of times, although I don't really know her that well, and I don't really consider her as someone who has genuinely inspired me. There's nothing wrong with her. It's just that, even though I've been talking about her, I have never really considered her as someone who is inspiring. Although I'm pretty sure that a lot of people out there think that she is, which is perfectly understandable considering her, achievements in her professional career, right? But let me be very clear about the reason why I decided to speak about her in this particular topic. It was because she was the only person that I knew exactly how to talk about, right? I have other idols, but I don't speak about them that often, right? So it's just not a wise thing to do in the test. So, right, the first thing that you need to pay attention to here is that pick the person that you know exactly how to describe. Don't go for someone that you like but cannot speak about. Okay? I certainly look up to people like Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey and Celine Dion, the Trinity, the vocal Trinity. But I don't speak about them. I don't know how to describe their vocal abilities. I don't know how to describe their accolades and things like that. So I'm not gonna, put my luck to the test and talk about them. And that's something you need to be mindful of when you do the test, right? Don't experiment in the middle of the test. Right, now let's go through the script here. And as usual, I expect you all to pay attention to the rhythm, okay? Now, the first part, I would like Gwen to do this, right? And the second part, I would like, hold on. Nhung, yeah. First part, Gwen, second part, Nhung. And then we're going to analyze this part. Now,
I'd like to talk about Anh Viên, a very famous swimmer here in Vietnam. So she is a professional athlete, and swimming is practically what has put her on the map.
let's stop here. I noticed that you tend to go down at the end of any chunk, any utterance. That's not exactly a positive habit. Like sometimes if your answer isn't finished yet, you definitely need to go up, right? So for instance, in the first two sentences, this is how I would do them. Well, I like to talk about Anh Viên, a very famous swimmer here in Vietnam. So you can go down in Vietnam, but you definitely need to go up. Sorry. been feeling a bit gassy today. I like to talk about ảnh viên. It has to go up slightly at the end to signal to the examiner that you're, about to follow that with something else. I like to talk about ảnh viên, a very famous swimmer here in Vietnam. So this word so here is a connected word. So you say, so, you can stretch it out. You can stretch it out. So, she's a professional athlete. Athlete, it has to go up. And swimming is, practically what has put her on the map. You can go down more. But the athlete, you have to go up. You understand what I'm saying here?
Okay.
Let's start from the top. I like to talk about ảnh viên.
I would like to talk about Anh Viên, a very famous swimmer here in Vietnam. So she a professional athlete, and swimming is practically what has put her on the map. Last year,
Nope. No. Not athlete. She's a professional athlete.
Professional athlete.
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 Mm.
So last year she competed in a few competition, and it's safe to say
Nope, not competitions. Last year she competed in a few competitions. Competitions. Can you physically go up that part, like vocally speaking? Can you go up? Last year she competed in a few competitions. Competitions.
last year she competed in a few competition, and
Okay, so you're capable of doing that. Well, then don't test my patience. Do that, right?
okay.
Mm.
And it's safe to say she mopped the floor with everyone else. Earlier this year, she was nominated for several awards and also to
Nope. She was nominated for several awards.
awards.
Go up.
She was nominated for several awards and also took home all the prizes.
So I first got to know about.
So I first got to know about Anh Viên a couple of years ago. She was a swimming prodigy that suddenly got a lot of exposure. I saw her on the internet many times.
Money.
Many times.
Okay.
Came to see some of her video on TikTok. The videos were really entertaining, seeing that showed very interesting tips and tricks for people to improve their swimming skills. And I was trying to learn how to treat water.
Tread water.
Water.
To tread water is to essentially stay floating without moving around in water. And okay, I noticed this when you're clearly capable of going up and down, but you tend to go down when you read. I don't think that it happens when you speak, but that's a habit that you need to fix. At least for the sake of doing this course, because I'll be complaining about it all the time, right? So you do need to go up as you read, and as you read, don't just read in a ready way. You need to figure out where you need to pause. I mean, obviously you're gonna pause after a full stop or a comma, right? But then, in a long sentence, you need to work out, which idea is complete and which words need to go together. For instance, I saw her on the internet many times and came to see some of her videos on TikTok, right? So two utterances. The videos were really entertaining, stretch that word, were really entertaining since they showed very interesting tips and tricks, right? Tips and tricks for people to improve their swimming skills. And I was learning, you don't say and, but you say, and I was learning, and I was trying to learn how to tread water, right? So try to break, these sentences into chunks of words. And I agree that when you read something for the very first time, it might be hard for you to, see things in advance. But that's a skill you need to require, because not to require, but to acquire, because that is also tied to your ability to think of complete ideas before speaking, right? And you're also capable of pronouncing ending sounds. But for me, I feel at this point, these are still kind of like in and out. Sometimes the ending sounds are there, sometimes they're not. So you should definitely try to get all the ending sounds out as you speak, right? So for instance, can you cover this part again? And I was,
And I watched was trying to learn how to tread water.
it's just was, not watch. And I was trying to learn how to tread water. And I was trying to learn how to tread water. One more time.
And I was trying to learn how to tread water.
Sure, you got it in you, but you need to be more disciplined as you speak. You should try to go up as well. Don't go down all the time. Let's continue. Nhung, please. Moving on to what she has done.
Moving on to what she has done. Envy is a professional athlete, so she trains a lot and competes in tournaments every once in a while. As far as I am concerned, she has already scaled the heights and has nothing left to prove. But she keeps but she keeps it going, swimming and competing. What I find really inspiring about Envy is that although she has achieved so much, and far more than what I've managed to accomplish thus far, she still has this down-to-earth personality. She's rich, but doesn't come across as someone obnoxious. In her interviews, she's very well spoken and humble. She addresses
Elder.
elder people politely and jokes very often. She can brag about her achievements from time to time, but is mostly tongue in cheek.
Tongue in cheek.
Tongue in cheek.
It's a phrase. It's a phrase. If you do something like, if you say something is only, tongue in cheek, it's done in a humorous way to poke fun at other people or at yourself. I dare to say that your rhythm, your intonation got better towards the end. At the beginning, it was very, very dead. So, and also the chunking was better towards the end. At the beginning, the chunking wasn't that good. Now, let's consider this part here. You cannot say, yeah, she has already scaled the heights and has. That rhythm is weird, right? The phrase, this is one complete phrase. So you have to complete it. Well, she has already scaled the heights and has nothing left to prove, right? You cannot stretch the word and out as well because this is just a grammar word, right? So in what I'm trying to say here is that for this particular sentence, the way to do it is, well, as far as I'm concerned, she has already scaled the heights, has nothing to prove, right? Now let's cover this part again.
As far as I'm concerned, she has already scaled the heights and has nothing.
Nope, not highs like that. That's not how you pronounce the word heights. This is heights. It's a very sharp I, not a dragged out one. She has already scaled the heights. Heights.
Heights.
Hmm.
As far as I'm concerned, she has already scaled the heights and has nothing left to prove.
No, not quite there. Last shot. As far as I'm concerned, you have to go up. As long as I'm concerned, she has already scaled the heights and has nothing left to prove.
As far as I'm concerned, she has already scaled the heights and has nothing left to prove.
No, not quite there yet. She has already scaled the heights. It's still a very sharp and decisive height, not heights. She has already scaled the heights. That's not what it is. She has already scaled the heights and has nothing left to prove. Right? Not quite there yet. In this particular part as well, it was very, very reading. There was no speaking element in that. Let's cover this chunk again. What I find really inspiring about Anh Viên is that, although she has, let's do it again. What I find really inspiring about Anh Viên is that you can break it like that. You don't actually stretch the word that. It's also a very uncommon word to stretch, to stress or stretch. Because oftentimes you only stretch that when you want to emphasize something like it's so bad. It was not that bad, right? Let's do that again. What I find really inspiring about Indian is that, although she has achieved so much, so on and so forth. Come on.
What I find really inspiring about Anbin is that although
No,
she
not is that. Don't stretch the word is. It's only is. What I find really inspiring about Indian is that is that
is that what I find really inspiring about Anbin is that although she
nope. It still is. It's just is. You need a dấu huyền there. It's that.
is that what I find really inspiring about Anbin is that although she
Almost there. Almost there, but the is way too clear. It's that. It's just a bit faster. One more time. One last time.
what I find really inspiring about Anbin is that although she has achieved so much, far more than what I've managed to accomplish thus far, she's still
And fine. That part is fine. This part though, what I've managed. So the je has to be all the way out.
manage.
Mm. Far more than what I've managed to accomplish thus far.
Far more than what I've managed to accomplish thus far.
Has to be out as well. Accomplish
Accomplish thus
thus
far.
far. Okay, cool. So I guess through that particular exercise, what I need all of you to pay attention to is that when you go through a script or a sample answer, don't just read like a robot. In fact, with this particular level of performance, you're not even competing with any robot, right? What you need to do when you go through a scripted answer is that, wait, hold on, did I just make a snide remark again? Let me fix it. I think that you are doing your best job, and I trust that you have registered my advice and that you will improve, right? I'm not going to compare you with robots. This is so hard. How can, like foreign teachers stay so positive all the time? Like every single time I speak to my students, I am compelled to, be as nitpicking as possible. Uh, Okay, where was I? What I'm trying to say here is that when you go through a scripted answer, try your best to identify groups of words that should go together. And when you go through each word, each chunk, well, that's a complete idea. So try to stretch the words out to make sure that you can, go through them in a sensible way. And try to go up in parts where, there are still ideas afterwards, right? I think that like all of you have the ability to do so. And when you actually speak, you are capable of going up and down. It's just that, whenever I ask you to read a script, you tend to just focus on going down. Like it's very reedy like that. So I don't want it. I want it to be more lively and vibrant as you navigate the script. Okay? Okay. Any question regarding this particular script? Lee and Chang, any question? No? Miss Phượng, any question?
No.
Okay. So there are lots of words here. I have a question. Even though this particular script is about Ảnh Viên, someone that has inspired me, even though that's clearly not the case, by virtue of me being more inspired by other individuals, do you think that you can use this script to talk about, let's say, describe a person, a famous person that you want to get to know. Chang, what do you think? Do you think we can use the script to talk about a person that you'd like to know more about?
Probably the one you want to know more in person, I think. You should have known this person before, at least a little bit to talk about them like this.
Sure. I'd like to know more about her, as in, I'd like to know more about what she does in her daily activities. I want to know, how she's running her business, if she has one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's 100% then. All right, the second topic here. Do you think that I can use this script about I'm going to talk about a successful person in sports? This is pretty much a given. Uh,
About this topic,
yeah.
uh, maybe I don't really confident about this because
Hoa, I have a question. My question is, so there's the script about Ảnh Viên,
mhm.
right? Do you think that I can use this script to talk about a successful person in sports?
Oh yeah, sure.
Sure, 100%. Mm. Good. So essentially, there are certain topics that can be grouped together in a way. You don't really have to group them, but you just need to know that apparently the content or the message of one particular script can be applied in other contexts. Let's move on then. Do you think that the script about Anh Viên can be used to talk about a time you did something and got a compliment for it? Tai, please.
Yeah, can you ask me again?
Okay. The question is, do you think that the script about Anh Viên can be used to answer this topic? A time you did something and got a compliment for it.
No, no.
100%.
I think I can take like 30% only.
So
From
which
that
part do
script,
you, sure, which part would you take?
I think I could do something like the down to earth part, for example. Like I could talk about my achievements, and then I I would say something like, but I don't want to be so arrogant, and I always try to be down to earth and humble, and that is the thing that makes a lot of people compliment about me. Yeah, I would say something like that.
So you would use this particular idea.
No,
Oh,
not
sorry.
really. I mean I can use words and the way I extend the ideas, but not this idea, not the whole one.
So it's not even like 30%, it's more like 10%, a small part, right? Okay. Well, this number five is going rogue again. Right, let me inspire you with a thought. What if I tell you that I'm going to talk about the time when I learned how to swim? And I'm going to dedicate a segment of this particular experience to Anh Viên, who taught me some very interesting tips and tricks in terms of swimming techniques. And I was able to tread water because of that. And then I would say that, well, I said something about the fact that I learned from Anh Viên, and I also said something, I'm going to say something about the fact that, I learned from Anh Viên because, she is this very accomplished, swimmer in Vietnam. Last year she essentially swept all of her competition, and she also got like tons of prizes for that. So, she is certainly a good person to count on when it comes to swimming tricks. So what I'm trying to do is that I'm going to borrow some ideas here. I'm going to use a bit of this here. I'm going to use a bit of this and uh, so this part, learn how to swim. a bit of this part and a bit of this part. All right, so let me piece the pieces together. Let me like connect the pieces together for you. So I want to tell you about time when I learned how to swim by myself. So many moons ago, I didn't know how to swim, and like I really struggled with trying to just tread water, and even my teachers couldn't teach me that technique, and he was really frustrated about that situation. So I decided to take matters into my own hand by watching videos of Anh Viên, who is a very famous athlete here in Vietnam. She's a professional swimmer, and well, swimming is practically what has put her on the map. Well, last year she competed in a few competitions, and she mopped the floor with everyone else. And earlier this year, she was also nominated for several awards, and she took home all the prizes. So I do think that she was. I did think that she was the person to count on. And so I watched some of her videos, especially ones on TikTok. And I really like these videos because they showed me very interesting tips and tricks to improve certain swimming techniques. And from one of her videos, I actually learned how to tread water. So apparently the secret here was that I needed to relax my body and coordinate my breathing with my hand movements. So during one of our swimming lessons, I demonstrated what I learned to my teacher, and he was astounded by my performance. So he complimented me, saying that I was able to overcome quite a large obstacle, and he also asked me about whether or not I actually learned it by myself, or if I had lessons elsewhere. And I said that well, I learned it from TikTok. Dai, what do you think? Can I use ideas about Anh Viên like that?
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
So
So I have managed to increase this number to 25%. Right? So I guess what I'm trying to say through this particular exercise is that, like, what's the message here? Like, when you prepare your speaking part to answers, and sometimes you might be compelled to speak in an honest way. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? It's just that, like, during this particular course, what I would like you to do is to consider the, you know, versatile use of the ideas that you have got. And in my opinion, while, having a wide variety of ideas is definitely something that you need to attain, if you're unable to use ideas flexibly in different situations, then you're going to be at a disadvantage because you don't always speak about, let's say, swimming or famous people or being complimented, right? So if you get answers in these get questions in these topics and you decide to just freestyle, chances are you're gonna fumble the ball and make a lot of mistakes, right? It's not so much a problem of your honesty, it's more about your proficiency in using some ideas. Okay. So what I'm trying to do for this particular exercise is that, when you answer and create like typical answers for certain topics, try to think of how to use, these ideas in different contexts. In this case, instead of talking about, let's say, passing a test with flying colors, or doing housework, or cooking up a meal or something like that, I would go with something related to swimming because I have already known how to speak about professional athlete, and I can sort of connect the dots talking about somewhere along the way, you know? Yeah, that for me, that's the message for this particular part. Try to use some typical ideas in various situations. You might need to adapt them, but this can increase your flexibility in using them, right? While also ensuring a high level of accuracy. Okay. Gwen, any question thus far?
No, not yet.
So that's it for speaking part 2. We're going to go through one speaking part 3 question and call it a day. I have a point to make with this particular question, with this particular part. Let's go with the second one here. Do you think that famous people have a responsibility to act as role models? Lee, please. Lee, are you in the building?
Yes,
Oh, Lee is here. Read, please. I think that it's both.
I think that's both yes and no. On one hand, you might say they do have a duty towards society since they are famous and admired by so many people, especially young fans.
So,
So they owe it to the fans to behave in a positive way on and off court. For instance, sports stars like Messi and Serena Williams are wonderful role models. They excel at what they do, compete fairly, develop their own businesses, and give back to the out of their book.
the chunking was
On
horrible.
the other hand,
Let's do it.
I think it's
Not
rather
horrible.
wet
I think
to
that you
impose
need to
the
do it again.
notion
Sorry,
of role model.
Lee, it's a bit lagging right now, but I felt like your chunking was a bit weird. Let's do it again and pay a closer attention to utterances. Come on, I think that it's both yes and no.
I think that
Lee,
it's both yes and no. On
hmm.
one hand, you might say they do have to stay, but
Is it just me?
No,
People,
he's
Chung,
Lee.
Do you think that who's lagging, me or Lee here?
Lee.
Okay. Lee, can you hear us? A bit lagging, so we're gonna move on to someone else. Lee, you have a go at this at reading answers in other lessons. Miss Foot, please can you just read the answer? Do you think that famous people have a responsibility to act as role models? The first part here.
I think that is both yes and no. On one hand, you may say they do have a duty towards society since they are famous and admired by so many people, especially young fans.
Let's stop
So
here.
they
Let's stop here. I'd like you to go up here by so many people, especially young fans. So many people, especially young fans. Let's do it again. Since they are famous and
since they're famous and admired by so many people, especially
no.
young fans.
People is correct.
People, especially young
Especially young
fans.
fans. I'd like you to stretch that word out a bit more. Young, especially young fans.
Especially young fans.
So they owe it to their fans.
So they owe it to their fans to behave in a positive way, on and off court.
I think we can with or without the camera. is better. I wonder why this words, this expression slid in with or without the camera. Yeah,
With
let's
or
do it again.
without the camera.
For instance,
For instance, sports stars like Messi and Serena Williams are wonderful role models. They excel at what they do, compete fairly, develop their own businesses, and give back to their community. I think that everyone can take a page out of their book.
let's stop here. You sort of overdid it in this part. It's more like they excel at what they do. They excel at what they do. Like when I say go up, it doesn't just go straight up like that. It's more like down and up. So it should be like they excel at what they do, compete
They excel
fairly,
at what they do, compete
compete
fairly,
fairly,
compete
develop their
fairly,
own
and
businesses,
develop their own businesses and give
and
back
give
to their
back to their
community.
community. So I think that so all right, the last sentence here. So I think that everyone can take a page out of their book. More stress on the word everyone. I think that everyone can take a page out of their book.
I think that everyone can take a page out of their book.
Not quite there. I think that
I think
pause.
that I think that everyone can take a page out of their book.
No. I think that pause. Everyone pause.
I think that everyone can take a page out of their book.
Nice. Right, so that's the first part. Tian, the next part, and I'd like to make a point.
On the other hand, I think it's rather weird to impose the notion of a role model on all celebrities. I mean, a lot of them become famous because of their work rather than personality. For instance, many rappers in Vietnam are known for viral hits on the internet, and even though they do work hard, what gives them the material for their songs is a lifestyle featuring drugs and endless parties. I don't assume these elements should be emulated, but without them, I wonder if the rappers could be whole and artistically creative enough.
The rhythm was really weird at the end. I don't assume that these elements should be emulated, but without them, I wonder
But
if these
without
rappers
them,
could be, whole and artistically creative enough. Let's do it again.
I don't assume these elements should be emulated, but without them, I wonder if the rapper could be whole and artistically creative enough.
Okay, cool. So as you can see here, this is quite an ideal answer for speaking part 3. If you can't make up your mind, you can always say something like, well, I'm on the fence about this, or I feel like, it's still up in the air, or it's both yes and no. And then you can talk about both of these viewpoints, right? That's the first thing. And as you can see, this is, in my opinion, quite a model answer because it really shows you all the steps involved in discussing an opinion, right? It's both yes and no. This is my answer. On one hand, you might say they do have a duty towards society, right? Since this is a reason, they are famous and admired by so many people, especially young fans. So they owe it to their fans. This is the reason. So they owe it to their fans to behave in a positive way, with or without the camera. So this is a result, right? Obviously, this is followed by an example and deeper analysis, extra details. I think that everyone can take a page out. I think that everyone can take a page out of their book, right? So this is a mini conclusion. But as you can see, there's a difference between reading and actually speaking. And well, that's an idea that I'm trying to get across, although I feel like my effort has been met with mixed success. But anyway, so this is a very ideal speaking part 3 answer. And I guess you guys can try to think of examples whenever you try to raise a point. That should like strengthen your argument. And also for the sake of the examiner, they always have to understand what you want to say, right? So always be prepared to give some examples. Like when I asked Miss Fook this particular question, I asked her, well, can you give me some examples? And she said, well, in Vietnam, there are many famous singers who, so on and so forth. That is still a very generic answer. So I was compelled to fulfill my duty as, her examiner at the time, to ask her another question. Can you give me a more specific example? Right? So try to think of specific examples in preparation for speaking part 3. Right? And of course, for all other parts of constructing your argument, you can state your point, you can give a reason, you can give a result, you can give an example, and then you can provide extra details regarding that example, so on and so forth. Right? But always try to discuss, always try to provide more details. Okay. And if you can't make up your mind, that's fine. You can always say, well, I think that it's a bit of both. I mean, or you can say it's a bit of both yes and no. Okay. Or you can say, well, I'm not too sure about this, so on and so forth. The same thing happens to the second sample answer. It starts with an opinion. Well, I think it's rather weird to impose the notion of a role model on all celebrities. That's an opinion. I mean, a lot of them, this is because reason, right? I mean, a lot of them become famous for their work rather than their personality. And then you give some example. For instance, many rappers in Vietnam are known for viral hits on the internet. And even though they do work hard, what gives them the material for their songs is a lifestyle featuring drugs and endless parties, right? So you're trying to say that not all celebrities can be positive role models. And then you give a specific example of that. Rappers, not all of them, but many of them, right? Live lives with drugs and parties and infidelity, things like that. Okay. Now, today, I think the lesson has already been dragged out long enough. So let's try to pack everything in. Tell me one thing you've learned today. That's all. Um, well, the newcomer then, tell me one thing you've learned today.
Em nói tiếng Việt cho nó dễ hiểu nhé.
Sure.
Thì có 2 điều em học hôm nay. Thứ nhất là về cái cách khi mình đọc hay là mình nói, thì mình thay vì mình cứ ở cuối câu mình lại hạ cái tông giọng xuống ấy, thì mình phải nâng tông giọng lên, và một số chỗ thì mình phải ngắt nghĩ câu nó phù hợp. Còn một cái nữa mà em học được đó là về cái phần khi mà em nói ấy, thì cái ý của em nó có bị chung chung ấy, sau đấy mình lại mất công mình giải thích thì nó sẽ không đào sâu được vào cái vấn đề đấy. Thì thay vì đấy thì mình đi vào cái cụ thể luôn, những ý sau nó chỉ là những ý support thôi, thì nó vừa dễ tư duy mà nó cũng đỡ lòng vòng.
Not quite sure if I agree with the second thing, but okay, sure. I've already covered all of the points here. Like in speaking part 1, try to speak at length and try to speak in complete ideas. Complete ideas, right? Don't just go through, one word at a time, although it's inevitable at some points in time. Just try to speak in complete ideas. And this, not this, this. In speaking part 2, as you prepare for multiple topics, try to use certain ideas that you consider to be interesting or safe in other contexts. That's speaking part 2. And as for speaking part 3, you don't always have to have a clear answer right from the beginning, but you should answer in a way that makes sense, right? I'm not quite sure about what Quân said here. Perhaps it's because he started his answer with saying that a good leader is someone who knows how to lead. I mean, it's a pretty obvious thing to say, so it's redundant. You don't really have to pick a point like right from the beginning. You can say something like, I'm not too sure, and then you consider, both sides of the arguments, both sides of the viewpoint. And as you consider each point, each aspect, you can go through reason, result, and example with an extra emphasis on example. Like all of you need to work on like drawing examples. A lot of examiners these days try to test whether or not you're actually that fluent by asking you for examples. And if you can't really provide like specific examples, you're gonna be marked down, I think. Okay, well, any question? Any other question? No?
I want to ask about the word emulated in this case.
Copied, imitated.
What? Sorry?
Copy, emulate means to copy or imitate it.
All right. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, that should be it for today. Have a lovely weekend and stay safe. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.